It's Thursday the 15th of January 2018, so it's about 8:45 in the morning, and I've got to leave in 15 minutes to get my bus to the train station so that I can go to Sheffield. So my plan is to do the filming, then meet up with a friend who lives in Sheffield who I don't see very often, and I'm hoping I'll get time to go to my favourite piercing shop. I've just never found anywhere like it in the rest of the country, so I always want to go back there anytime I'm going to Sheffield. I'm more excited than nervous. One more thing, I've put on normal human clothes instead of my scruffy jogging bottoms, seeing as I'm actually gonna be filmed for TV, so I thought I'd show you that since it's a rare thing. So I better finish getting ready and get a move on. I have majorly fucked up today, which in a sense is no surprise because I'm trying to suddenly just be independent without building up to it, and you can't do that. There are too many issues. So in a sense I feel that it was bound to happen, and I knew it was risky to come to Sheffield at all, but I wanted to try, and I wanted to take this as an opportunity to see how I can manage going out of the house on my own. So I'll tell you the colossal errors I've made in a moment, but first of all I just want to tell you a little bit about the filming. So when I first arrived at the filming location, there were just these two guys, and I don't know if I had a nervous energy about me but that they were picking up on, but they suddenly started to act really nervous, and then it was just really odd, so I just immediately started talking and tried to reveal as much stuff about myself as possible, so that I could avoid things being weirdly awkward by just being a weird person anyway. So once we started filming, it was absolutely fine. I felt quite at home speaking in front of the camera, and although it was a much bigger camera than my SLR, I mean it was like this big on a huge tripod, it was essentially the same thing. Once you forget that you're being recorded, you just start speaking as if talking to a friend, and it's no different. So that was really good, and they also filmed as after asking me the interview questions, which were well thought out and interesting questions, they then filmed some more footage, he said, "I just want to film a bit of your hands," and I was like, "B-roll?" And he was like, "Yeah." So we did a bunch of stuff relating to that. He wanted some footage of me driving down the road in my wheelchair and crossing the road, and me sitting in my wheelchair looking around at buildings, trying to make it seem really natural, as if I'm not just like, I'm being filmed. But anyway, we did all that, and then the other woman that I had worked with at this charity that the whole documentary's about turned up, and she was happy to see me. She came over and gave me a hug, and she was as lovely and friendly as I remembered. And we then ended up chatting more, and so they recorded us having a hot drink together and chatting, and I think that's going to form part of the documentary as well. And the interesting thing was that I then stayed and watched her interview, and she completely corroborated my story. She said almost identical things, and I haven't spoken to her since the incident in 2011, so obviously we're both remembering things the same way, which shows that I'm right, that we're both right. So after that, I decided to take the opportunity to go to the best piercing shop in the country, which happens to be in Sheffield. And I went in there thinking I'd just get a piercing. And then I started talking to a guy who works there, a piercer, about anodizing jewellery and potentially getting a matching set of jewellery. And then he told me that not only is he really into anodizing jewellery, which is where you change the colour of the jewellery using a voltage that you pass over the current over the jewellery, he also had the equipment, the anodizing machine in-house right there, and he had the afternoon completely free. So of course, I asked him if I could have a look at him anodizing some stuff, and he ended up doing an entire set of all my piercings for me in a sort of rose gold, but a kind of subtle, varied rose gold with hints of more pink in some places and more of a yellowy gold in others. And that's what I'm wearing now. And I'll show you that a bit better tomorrow. But the thing that I messed up on was that I started going through this anodizing process with them, learning about it, and then once we'd finally got all the jewellery the way that I wanted and the sort of subtle shades that I wanted for all my piercings, which is a lot of jewellery, he then called down one of the other piercers to start putting the jewellery in while he did other work. So I didn't look at the time at any point during all of this, and it's worth mentioning that I had a hot drink when I was filming, but before that the last thing I'd had to eat or drink was at 10 in the morning when I was on the train. And so once all the jewellery was finished, I got to the piercing shop about 3 p.m, and once we finally finished anodizing all the jewellery and putting it in all my piercings and taking all the old jewellery out and keeping track of what went where and bagging them all up, I just picked up my phone and looked at it, and it was about 8:30 in the evening. I honestly thought my phone was broken. I went in there at 3 p.m. and I thought about an hour had passed. In my mind, no more than an hour could have possibly passed whilst we were doing it. But I checked with them and the time was right, so at that point I was really stressed out because I realised that I'd missed the train at 8 p.m. that I was supposed to get back home, and also I hadn't met up with my friend from Sheffield because I thought that I could meet up with him early evening, but it was actually already really late. So I'd been in the piercing shop from 3 p.m, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'd been in the piercing shop, I'd say about 6 hours, and I did nothing during that time except watch the whole jewellery process and have them put it in and stuff. And I mean, yes, people do get distracted by things they're interested in, and this is definitely something that I'm interested in, but it wasn't that. I just had no sense of time passing whatsoever, and I also didn't become aware that I needed to eat or drink or use the toilet at all during any of that time. I was just there, and I'm not sure if I remember the whole thing and that I just had the wrong sense of time, or whether I've forgotten parts of it, but either way, I drove out of the shop in my wheelchair, and at that point realised how bad things were. I tried to go back towards the train station, even though I'd missed the train. I didn't know what else to do, and I started driving there in my wheelchair, and then realised that I'd completely forgotten all the familiar places and familiar routes that I know in this city, because I lived here for 5 or 6 years not long ago. And I realised that I must have low blood sugar, but at this point there wasn't anywhere open to get any hot food or anything. So I went into McDonald's just to hide, even though there is nothing gluten-free on their menu, which is ridiculous. So I went in there to hide, and I was feeling very vulnerable and upset, and I knew that I'd made this terrible mistake. And then I came across a girl who, when I last lived in Sheffield in one of my previous jobs, had come into the establishment on several occasions, first of all verbally assaulting me and pinching items of low value, such as ridiculous amounts of plastic spoons, and then later on becoming more aggressive and demanding that I give her all the items that we sold for free, and then culminating in her screaming in my face, getting really aggressive, and with her friends smashing a china bowl over my head and just chucking everything in the shop everywhere. And at this point I was infuriated, and I said, "Get out of the shop." And even though I'd been injured, I ran out of the shop and chased her down the road, and she ran away. So I hadn't seen her since then. And then I was just sitting in McDonald's, and I saw her turn around and look at me, and I could see the cogs turning in her brain, and I saw that she recognised me, and she was staring at me, and she was literally about to open her mouth to say something insulting, which is what she'd done for quite many weeks before she actually started becoming violent. So I immediately drove out of McDonald's and was just sitting in the street not knowing what to do. I randomly started driving around Sainsbury's, but luckily a very good friend who has been really supporting me and looking after me recently spoke to me on the phone, and when I explained what happened, he was able to sort things out by booking a travel lodge that was really nearby, and then giving me precise directions to it. But not only that, I was in a really bad state with low blood sugar, and I was insisting that I should just, sort of collapse out of my chair and lie down on the floor and just stay there, and saying to him that I couldn't handle having the conversation, and all this other nonsense that comes out when I'm suffering from low blood sugar and I've forgotten to take my medication and I've made a bunch of mistakes and I'm stressed. But he was able to completely talk me down. Many people have tried and failed in doing so in the past, so I felt really overwhelmed and emotional that he was able to help me in that way. And so I am now in my disability adapted room in the travel lodge. I've managed to find some gluten-free biscuits in the supermarket, which he encouraged me to buy and eat, and also encouraged me to get a cup of sugary tea, and I seem to have significantly recovered now, but I just feel so guilty that I put him through that stress, and so embarrassed that I just can't handle being independent without things going wrong like this. So I'm just gonna sit up here and watch a bit of TV and try and make up for all my missed doses of medication, and have a cup of tea, because there's obviously a kettle and some tea stuff here. And then tomorrow morning I'll try to find the right train to get back home. I feel like a complete idiot, and I'm really grateful to my friend for what he's done for me. So, goodbye for now.